Hi, and welcome to my brand new channel. I have a serious passion for woodworking. Join me on my journey of creating not just another weekend warrior project, but a bona fide family heirloom. In addition to being a hobbyist woodworker, I'm a firm believer in the preservation of our Bill of Rights and our Second Amendment. So in this video, I'll be designing and crafting a completely custom Mossberg 500 shotgun stock from scratch. I make no claims that my ways of crafting are the best way or even the right way. I'm learning as I'm going. Let's get started. I got this figured Bastogne walnut blank from a company out in California called woodnut.com. Very nice man and family-owned business. I got this blank for a little over $200, including shipping and handling. I drew this design onto a piece of scrap wood and adjusted it until I was happy with the shape. It has a little bit of a negative pitch, as that is most comfortable for me as a woman. This stock will also be neutral with no cast, since this is the first stock I've ever made and I don't want to overcomplicate things. Once cut, this will serve as a template to trace onto my blank. Next, I'm going to draw lines roughly along the template onto the wood, and I'll leave a little extra space around it. This is the stock that the Mossberg came with. I took measurements of the inside of the stock and determined that from here to here is exactly 5 inches long and 3/8 inches wide. I needed to make a line that was perpendicular to the edge where the stock meets the receiver, so I drew this line, and this is where the bolt will live inside the stock. I used the pad from my Beretta to trace a profile onto the blank so I'd have a reference. And then I found my center point on the front of the stock and used a punch to mark it, and that's where I'll start drilling the hole for the bolt. So now that I've drilled a 3/8 inch hole from the front to the back, I have to drill a 3/4 inch hole using this existing hole as a guide. I have to drill that all the way to this point. The wider hole will give me access to the bolt to be able to take the stock on and off. Next, I have to tackle the inletting, and I'd be lying if I wasn't a little intimidated by this, but I'm going to try to break it down to make it easier on myself. I took a measurement of the inside rim of this circle, and I'll use a Forstner bit of that exact size to start me off. Next, I'm going to chisel a rough outline of the outer edge of the circle, and I'll take a palm router to remove the excess material around it. Now I'm using a very small chisel to just clean up this edge. When I look at the original stock, there's this cutaway, a semicircular area that the receiver fits right into like a glove. So I measured the diameter of the hole, and I'll use a Forstner bit of the exact width and drill this out on my drill press. I'm mixing up a 2-part epoxy to glass bed the stock to the receiver for extra strength and a perfect fit. While the epoxy was still wet, I fit the stock to the receiver. Next, I cleaned up the excess with mineral spirits. Once the epoxy cured, I removed the stock from the receiver, and now it's ready for sanding. Overall, I am really happy with the result, especially for my first try. It's not perfect, but it's helpful to remind myself that the stock on the left was created with a computer and a CNC, and mine was done by hand. I'm using my bench planer to remove some excess thickness from the piece to make carving easier. Next, I'm going to use my hand plane and my rasp to carve the shape of the stock. Now it's time to carve the portion of the stock closest to the receiver. I masked off the receiver with painter's tape to protect it from getting damaged by my rasp. At this point, the final shape is nearly completed. I want to both shape and shorten the grip a bit more as it's far too chunky in its current state, and I also want to adjust the length of pull. I'll be shortening the stock about 1.5 inches, and it'll give me roughly a 13.5-inch length of pull. I've marked the area of the stock that I want to cut and wrapped it in tape to prevent tear out. And here's the final shape of the stock, and I truly could not be any happier with it. You probably thought I forgot about the forend, and to be honest, I've been putting it off because in many ways it feels more challenging than the stock. I'll be carving it out of this walnut blank, and just like the stock, I'll be drilling out the center using this really cool Forstner bit extender. The action slide tube is meant to fit into the hole I just drilled. However, since I was drilling it by hand, it's not 100% straight and doesn't fit. I'll have to use rasps to open up the hole just a bit. And now it's a perfect fit. I placed the tube into the original forend to illustrate this next part a bit better. I have to open up this area a bit more using my drill press so that the entire action slide tube can fit in. And before I do any more inletting, I'm going to carve the basic outer shape. Next, I'm going to continue the inletting and open up this space right here to accommodate the barrel. I'm using the table saw to cut out a dado. Next, I'm routing out some of the extra material so that the action slide tube will fit. And now I'll clean it up a bit by hand. Another perfect fit. Next, I have to drill out a space at the tip of the forend to accommodate the cap that keeps the action slide tube in place. After drilling, I screwed the cap on off camera using the choke wrench. It needed a surprising amount of elbow grease to turn it. Next, I'll start shaping this area to better accommodate the barrel, which will sit right on top of the forend. And this is the final shape that I've arrived at. It's looking pretty close to the original forend, and I'm very pleased with it so far. Next, I'll be mixing up some shellac and starting the finishing process. People generally use denatured alcohol to cut shellac, and that denatured alcohol is actually a product of the Prohibition era in the United States. In order to make the alcohol unpalatable and downright poisonous to drink, but still useful for industrial purposes, a bunch of toxic additives were put into it, and these additives can actually interfere negatively with the shellac during the finishing process. So I'm just going to use good old Everclear that I had in my liquor cabinet to cut my shellac. It's cleaner and contains a predictable amount of alcohol. I collected a bunch of walnut wood dust from the dust collector of my orbital sander, and I'm sprinkling it on the stock to help fill the pores prior to my first wash coat. I'll repeat this process and sand with 600 grit between each coat of shellac. Now that I've put on 4 coats of shellac, it's time to put on the true oil. True oil is kind of a misnomer. It's not just oil, but rather a combination of varnish and oil, which is my favorite type of finish to use because it has all the beauty of oil combined with the durability of a poly-type varnish. Now we'll be checkering both the forend and the stock. I've laid out this template onto the forend and I'll use a scribe to transfer the basic pattern. Next, I'm using a small V-shaped chisel to carve out the outline fairly deeply. I've drawn my master lines, and now all of my subsequent checkering lines will be parallel to them. Special checkering tools allow you to carve lines parallel again and again, but even with these tools, I found out very quickly just how difficult it is to keep a steady hand and a really straight line. Before this project, I never used any type of hand tools, so it's been a baptism by fire, but after a little bit of practice making checkering lines on a scrap piece, I just dove right in and trusted myself. Throughout my life, my parents collected antique wooden furniture from Ireland, England, and Wales, and many of their pieces have hand-carved elements like this one. I really felt a sense of my own ancestry and long-lost traditions while doing this part of the project.
Near to Bambridge town in the county down one morning in July. Down the Boring Green came a sweet Colleen, and she smiled as she passed me by. Oh, she looked so neat from her 2 white feet to the sheen of her nut brown hair. Sure, the coaxing elf had to shake myself to make sure I was standing there. Oh, from Bantry Bay up to Derry Quay, and from Galway to Dublin town. No maid I've seen like the brown Colleen that I met in the county down. Onward sped, I shook my head, and I gazed with the feeling queer. And I said, says I, to a passer-by, who's the maid with the nut brown hair? Oh, he smiled at me, and with pride says he, that's the gem of Ireland's crown. She's young Rose McCann from the banks of the Bann, from the star of the county down. Oh, from Bantry Bay up to Derry Quay, and from Galway to Dublin town. No maid I've seen like the brown Colleen that I met in the county down. I've travelled a bit, but never was hit since my roving career began. But fair and square I surrender there to the charms of young Rose McCann. Had a heart to let and no tenant yet did I meet with in shawl or in gown. But in she went, and I asked no rent from the star of the county down. Oh, from Bantry Bay up to Derry Quay, from Galway to Dublin town. No maid I've seen like the brown Colleen I met in the county down. At the Crossroads Fair I'll be surely there, and I'll dress in my Sunday clothes. And I'll try sheep's eyes and deludering lies on the heart of the nut brown rose. No pipe I'll smoke, sorry yoke, though with rust my plow turns brown. Till the smiling bride by my own fireside sits the star of the county down. Oh, from Bantry Bay up to Derry Cave, from Galway to Dublin town, no maid I've seen like a brown colleen that I met in the county down.
So I'm on my way to the range now, and I'm excited and nervous because I've been working on this project for 2 months now, and it's all coming together, finally. So let's go break some clays. Going to the range today was interesting. I discovered that the trigger on the Mossberg 500 is a little different than what I'm used to. I don't know if this is just this one specific trigger assembly or if the Mossberg's triggers are all like this, but there's a little bit of slack in the trigger and it was really screwing up my timing when I was shooting trap. Once I figured out how to accommodate that, it made all the difference, and it was actually, you know, it's a very nice trap gun. So I can't believe that the project is finally over. I'm kind of sad about it. I have a full-time job and I was spending all early mornings, late nights, weekends grinding to get this thing done. It took me a little over 2 months in my free time. I don't know if you noticed in a few of those shots when I was doing the checkering, I was wearing my bathrobe because it was 6 o'clock in the morning and I just wanted to get in 2 hours of checkering before I had to start my workday. So it's definitely been a labor of love, and I'm so happy with how everything came out. I hope that this video really inspired anyone out there who's looking to tackle a project like this to give it a try. And, you know, when I started the project, I said to myself, you know, this is a little more advanced than any project I've taken on before. The worst that happens is I ruin the piece of wood and I have to start over, and, you know, that's not the worst thing in the world, and that shouldn't stop you from getting started. Thank you very much for taking a chance on me and watching my very first YouTube video. Please comment below and let me know how you think I did. Like the video and share with anyone that you think might be interested. Subscribe to my channel if you're interested to see what I have coming next.